Since Sisters vs. Sisters is going to be on Xbox One, I figured, why not reference an idea? The Neptunia first-person shooter idea. I highly doubt this will happen, but one can dream. That explains why Vert is the center protagonist, but what about Keisha and Uni? I know that Nepgear and Adult Neptune also use guns, but in the case of Adult Neptune, we'll just say she's in another dimension, and Nepgear really only uses a gun in HGD. The reason we chose Uni and Keisha is for both story reasons, the fact that they don't have a game, and finally, they are the two most prominent gun users within the Neptunia cast. When I think of Xbox, what game comes to mind? The answer is Halo. And that's why I decided that an FPS would be a great way to make the Vert spin-off game if we ever want one. I have designed a control scheme. You're free to pause and read it. This is for the gameplay. This one is for when you are in inventory. This one is for when you are in a cutscene. And this one is for those in a menu title. But the question remains, who would we fight? Well, to those of you who played Mark II and got the white ending, you'll know that Nepgear was reading a book about Avenir. Avenir, for those who didn't play the original Neptunia, were one of the antagonists, and they did get in the way and tried to kill Neptune at multiple points through that story. However, that game, the original Neptunia, is not canon. But we know that this book exists, meaning that Avenir exists. Therefore, there has to be a way to use them. But what about the canonicity? Assuming we want this to take place in the hyperdimension, we need to account for two factors, that being Ganache and Sanj. We know from alternative endings, such as the white ending as previously shown, that while non-canon, the events are possible. Therefore, similar to when Sisters vs. Sisters decided to use the Gehaburn, the Conquest ending, or Save Your Sorrow ending, depending on what you want to call it, weapon, despite it not being the canon way to defeat R4 in Mark II, it exists within the story. Therefore, because of the Avenir book that Nepgear was holding, we can say that Ganache and Sanj over here actually will exist within this timeline. And the twist here is that they will be the ones that developed the mecha dolls that were seen throughout Sisters vs. Sisters. And I might as well put it this way, they will be seen as designed weapons designed to counter the goddesses. But who would be the final boss? Well, I figured that it'd be fun to have a little blast from the past. To those of you who played the original Neptunia and Mark II, you will recognize this thing, the Killashine. As a matter of fact, I believe it is also in the remakes of Rebirth 1 and Rebirth 2. But it does not look anywhere near as cool, in my opinion. I think that the original one looks really cool. So I figured we would bring back the Killashine, because it looks like something you would fight in an FPS. Especially futuristic / fantasy FPS. Something that we could do with the Neptunia world. One thing about Neptunia that I really wish they would do is leverage how many characters they have and make games based off squadrons. For example, this presentation focuses on a game revolving around Vert, Uni, and Keisha. So who are we fighting in this game? Well, Avenir will be the quote-unquote twist enemy, but who do we fight prior to them? The idea was to replicate something that happened in Combat Evolved, where you fight Covenant enemies and then eventually it switches to the Flood in the later half. But as I was thinking about a skeletal outline for the story, I realized that it's better to just splice the enemies individually. We could start with the Dog Cast, I'm going to call them the Dagu cast because these are the cast of enemies you find randomly in the wild, typically in Neptunia. And all of these characters, these enemies, will have their own strengths, weaknesses. For example, these are basic enemies that can be defeated relatively easily when compared to the Avenir attack, which is going to be retconned into being the enemies that we see throughout the Neptunia games, and each enemy will serve a different purpose. The Pixelvator will be the aerial melee enemies, as in they'll fly around and try to punch you. Sort of like the Sentinels from Halo, except instead of shooting at you, they will just try to rush you. The advantage of these enemies, with the exception of Sergeant Froggy, is that they all go down in one shot. The caveats to that will be Turrets and Sergeant Froggy. If you shoot Sergeant Froggy in the helmet, it'll take off his helmet, and then one shot to the body will kill it. And Turrets will die to one shot to the face, however it can use its little blocks to protect its face, and also the blocks will deal touch damage for the sake of giving it some challenge. The Horsebird will be a support enemy. Yes, it could just attack you directly and rush you, but what it can also do is pick up another enemy and allow it to have some sort of guard, making it easier for the enemies to have an advantage over you, the player. For example, it can pick up a Bomb Amburai, which is an enemy that has been designed to run up to the player and blow up, similar to the Suicidal Grunts of Halo, and just drop it on top of the player. That will force the player to focus more on the air and not just the ground. The Dagu itself will be similar to a Flood Infection form, meaning that they will swarm you in large numbers. Individually, they don't do much damage, but when together, they can defeat the player. In addition, I've decided to have upgraded Dagus, similar to the Dagu Man and the Dagu Woman, which were seen very prominently in the Keisha story, which is Vert's campaign of V2. Higher ranks will have guns as well, and they can attack you, the player. Or they can decide to melee you. And for the sake of adding some difficulty, if you're on a harder difficulty, the Dagu men who melee you will be instant death. It balances out given the fact that they have to pretty much get within close quarters range, are pretty susceptible to damage, have no shields. One shot to the head will take them out, therefore justifying the difficulty. At the same time, we have the Avenir enemies, which are enemies we've seen because we don't want to add anything that doesn't exist within Neptunia. Instead, what we want to do is take elements of Neptunia that exist and prove that we can create a game without adding original characters. The Avenir enemies will include the Haribo. They will function like hunters from Halo, except they can fly. That's the top right. You can shoot the wings to remove the safety of the enemies by knocking them out of the sky, and shoot them in the back with a headshot weapon for an instant kill. The majority of weapons, not counting the beam launcher type weapons, will be headshot weapons. Otherwise, you shoot them 3 to 10 times depending on the difficulty. The media enemy, which is the top left enemy, uses its spiked wings, and in this case I'm taking a page out of Rooster Teeth and having him use those wings to attack you like Penny attacks characters from Ruby. Bit, bottom left, will act like the drones from Halo 2. They pretty much die in 3 body shots, 1 in the eye, and they will group together in large numbers and shoot you from all directions. Bottom right will be the tank. This is a literal tank. If you shoot it in the yellow eye at the very bottom of it, it will instantly die. Otherwise, it'll be invincible. It will shoot you with beam launcher weaponry, which deplete your shield, but thankfully don't really go after your health very quickly. And finally, we'll have player equivalents. These will be the battle goddesses, the mecha dolls. And the reason for this is because we have to have our ripoff of the elites. because the elites added a strategy to Halo, and I figured we can use the Mecha Dolls, which were by far the most difficult enemy in Sisters vs. Sisters, as they could stun the player really easily, to be that equivalent to the goddess characters. And since we're going to create this plot so that the battle goddesses are CPU equivalents or CPU counters, it fits within both the narrative and the gameplay loop. I do want this to be the Vert game, so I gave her the most missions. The following missions here will be the order the game takes place. You can pause here and try to hypothesize. I will be going over the actual mission structure in a little bit regarding the story of the game that I have created a rough skeleton for. But of course, all FPS games must have a sandbox. And I decided to take weapons that exist within the Neptunia series. For the Vert sandbox, I decided to take a lot from the original Hyperdimension Neptunia, given that in that game, all 4 goddesses had a gun. However, I did make some small modifications to it. I do not recall Blonde's shotgun being a pump action, and I definitely don't remember Vert's pistol shooting beam launchers similar to the beam launcher gun that was used by Nepgear in her HD state. Regarding Uni's guns and Keisha's guns, these are actual weapons that exist within the games themselves that are either unlockable or DLC, and I decided to give them a function for what they can do within this sandbox. You're free to pause and read through all of them. And lastly, we have grenades, the throwing weapon. Planeton will have a sticky grenade, Last Station will have a fragmentation grenade, Louis will use a throwing knife, Green Box will be a fragmentation grenade, but it's the beam launcher variant, meaning that instead of taking damage, it will break shields, and the Avenir grenade, which is another sticky grenade, but this time it'll be a beam launcher variant. I will point out that sticky grenades, if they stick, no matter the enemy, unless it's a boss, will always count as instant death for the sake of balancing. At this point, it seems that the beam launcher style weaponry and the regular bullet weaponry will have its own little features. The bullet will damage health at 1.8 times of damage output, and it'll damage the shields at 1 times. The beam launcher will damage shields at 1.5 times, and the health at 1.2 times. This way, we can balance the weapons and force you to switch out weapons and create gun combinations. This is part of the fun that can be used to create a sandbox aspect in a game. And the grenades themselves will add a different strategy and be more prominent depending on which nation you're in at the time of the story, which I think adds to the strategy elements of an FPS game and separates it from generic FPS games that are more akin to Twitch shooters. I decided to take a screenshot from Halo 2 and modify some elements. As you can see, I am most certainly not an artist. This is a rough idea of what a Battleground could look like, and this is a hypothetical scenario where one is playing as Uni. The radar was taken directly from SVS. Enemy models and sprites were taken from the actual games, and the health bar was a image from the Sisters vs. Sisters game. This is not the final design, nor do I want it to be. This is just a rough idea. And yes, it would be FPS because this is the Xbox. We already have Neptunia Virtual Stars for those of you who want the third person. And if you really want a third person shooter with Neptunia, just download Loyalist mods for Call of Duty Black Ops 3 or Grand Theft Auto 5. So now we have to have mission style. We're going to be playing as 3 characters, and while they will control the same, there have to be some differences to account for the fact that they are different characters. So first off, we have Vert, who will be the close quarters shooting. Think of the sacred icon. If you've played Halo 2, you'll understand what I mean by that. It'll be mostly pistols and shotgun style weapons. Of course, rifles will exist, but these will not be the starting weapons. Her shields will be equivalent to Uni, being 50 shield points and 10 health points. To give you a reference, in Halo 2, the Master Chief and the Arbiter have 70 shield points and 30 health points. This will be explained by having Vert say she wanted it to be more revealing because her nation has certain tastes. For her character-specific ability, she will be able to use squad commands like Halo 5. In Halo 5, you can point to a weapon, signaling for the companion to pick it up, and you can point at an enemy, signaling your companions to focus and concentrate on the enemy. So here at the 9 minutes and 30-second mark of this recording, you'll see me using a lot of close quarters tactics using a bunch of pistols. This is done so that I can take out the enemies that are rushing me, such as the Flood, and these sentinels that are attacking me from a distance. In this case, I'm actually using the active camo because this game provides it for me. However, in the event of this game actually being a reality, Vert herself would not have active camo, as that would be a trait preserved only for Keisha. There will be other instances in this video wherein I demonstrate how you could use a shotgun in combat. Here I am at roughly 13 minutes and 40 seconds into this video. Here I am using the shotgun with close quarters combat, and I'm switching over to a rifle that I just picked up off the ground. There will be various enemies. You could treat this as a level wherein, say, I would have a character storming a tower, say the Last Station Basilicom. And the shotgun will be excellent for the close quarters combat, and rifles will be good for picking people off at a distance. However, it is not a perfect strategy, as even then you could still get mauled. That's what makes it tense, that's what makes it fun. Yes, you can get overwhelmed, and you can go in guns a-blazing, but if you want to succeed, you're going to have to strategize. That's why the grenades exist, so that you can create an explosion that hinders the close quarters enemies, as you just saw there. On to the next character, we have Uni. Her gameplay method will be mostly arena shooting and sniper rifle combat. Think of the Gravemind. She has the largest base weapon sandbox that the characters can use. Mind you, all character guns can be found within each mission, not all within each mission individually, but if you look through each mission that the characters are playable in, you could probably find every single character's guns. But what it means is that Uni will start with these sorts of weapons based on her sandbox, and the majority of weapons that will be found within these missions will be Uni-centric weapons. For her unique character ability, she will have a double scope on all of the weapons, given the fact that she is really good with a sniper rifle, and her health and shield will be the same as Vert's. So here I am doing a sniper section in Gravemind, Halo 2 on Legendary. For some reason the audio of the game cut off, so you get to listen to the amazing leanbox style music. And here I am showing off an aspect that I think I would really like to explore. We're using a sniper rifle to pick off enemies from distance, but at the same time, the mission is not just camping. It's a back and forth dance that you do with the enemies. This way, you're forced to strategize on the move, but you're still leaning into that sniper rifle spirit. Okay, you gotta be far from them, but they're also gonna shoot at you. Grenades help with the strategy. And we're just waiting for them to turn over like that, and you can snipe off that big hunter there. Now, it's not just about sniping at a distance, we also gotta get an up close and personal with the enemies. And if you gun them down, you can do that much damage as well. But of course, we're not just getting up close, we're also sniping from a distance. As you can see, this poor grunt there just died. This, I think, is a great representation of how I think Uni's playability could work in this game, given that she is still using that sniper rifle to get kills, but at the same time, it would involve seeing the enemy, meeting them head on, and reacting quickly. Moving on to Keisha, her gameplay will be infiltration stealth. Think of the High Charity mission. And the way it'll work is she will be deliberately placed in situations where there is not enough ammo to take out all the enemies, and given that her base weaponry are double machine guns, well, double submachine guns, she's going to run out of ammunition very quickly. And taking reference to the fact that she's based off Konami, we're going to have her play somewhat like Solid Snake using a Halo control scheme. She will have the lowest shield and health, being 20 shield points and 3 health points, meaning she's practically a wet napkin. However, to compensate, we'll give her active camouflage, which will replace the box joke from Neptunia V2. The active camouflage will be complements of Hakozaki Chika within the story. Otherwise, she plays exactly the same as Vert and Uni. So here I am at roughly 13 minutes and 20 seconds. Here you're going to see a bit of a stealth section that involves some shooting because we have to have some fun here. Notice how the enemies here can see me, but later on throughout the mission, if I get spotted, I have no way to fight them. I have to run away. And the reason for this is ingenious. Being forced to run away from the enemies forces me in a position where I can't just go in guns a-blazing. I have to strategize. I have to avoid conflict at all costs. There's conflict going above me. However, if I want to get out of here, I have to just hide through, similar to what we want Keisha to do. A bit of a stealth mission. And the idea is to give her active cover, but let's just say hypothetically there's a mission where she doesn't have it. How would we do active cover? It would probably involve something like this. Taking the corners and just hiding through. And I specifically chose High Charity because it is a really dark mission in terms of the lighting, which adds to the sneak factor. You know, we're going to be using elevators to get through places. And as you can see, even on original graphics, this was actually a lot darker than it was in the Anniversary. And even then, I still think the Anniversary is really dark. So here we'll have some situations where, say in the Keisha story, the typical Neptunian enemies will be fighting the Avenir machines, similar to how the Flood fight the Covenant here, and the key to victory is to stay hidden. You can still shoot enemies because we got to have this game be fun, but there's no way to actually win the gunfights brute force. You have to use the enemies as cover. So here I am hanging in the back, waiting for some Flood to spawn. Any Flood that go after me will be killed, and then the rest of them will go after the Covenant, as you see there. That is what I think could work for a campaign mission of this caliber. See how the Flood are going after the Covenant right there in front of me, but I'm staying in the back? I'm waiting for the enemy numbers to dwindle. However, even still, I can't hide forever. I will get discovered eventually, and as you can see, I'm constantly running out of ammunition during this mission. That's because if you actually take the time to shoot every enemy, you are not going to have enough ammunition to win. I don't think it's doable. Or at the very least, it's not realistic. And now that we've made it this far, and we've waited a little bit for some time to pass, you can see to the left of me, or forward at this point, that it is quite possible to just walk past everything. And the reason being that the enemies have all perished. If I just decided to run forward and go in guns a-blazing, I would have been shot and I would have died. Next, I'll show some footage from Quarantine Zone to get more of my point across. Here I am in the Sacred Icon mission, and I'm going to be showing off how we could do stealth using machine guns and active camo. As you can see here, there are some enemies that I can fight, but I do not have enough ammunition to take out all of them, as there are too many. And here I am pulling out a submachine gun to attempt to replicate what it would be like to use a machine gun against enemies as Keisha. The machine gun in this game is kind of bad, given that it actually doesn't have headshot capability. Therefore, it is very rare that I can just pick up a machine gun and start swinging in guns a-blazing and not run out of ammunition. Therefore, I have to play this one tactfully. I have to use active camouflage, I have to be quiet, and I have to make sure not to bump into the enemies. Active camouflage on Legendary lasts about 6 seconds. I'm playing on Heroic to make it last a bit longer, just for your viewing experience. Otherwise, the camouflage would be absolutely worthless. And we could justify not having too much camouflage here by saying that it is a prototype for Keisha and that the real camouflage will be developed later. And here we have an example of two different factions fighting at the same time in the level. Here we have humanity fighting some Flood. And notice how we really are just keeping ourselves hidden from the enemies here. We don't want to be seen, but if we have to be seen, we will be seen. But if you get spotted like that, you'll die. Still, if we're going to be ripping off, i.e. making an FPS Neptunia game, similar to Halo, given that Vert is the Xbox and we gotta make her reference something, we need vehicles. As far as I'm aware, the only known vehicles in the Neptunia series are the motorcycle, being IFs, and the tank from the R18 island. If I am missing anything, please let me know. Yes, I know about the stagecoach that the goddesses take to Louis in the anime, but something tells me taking a stagecoach into battle is not a good idea. So we need more. This, I'll leave it up to you. I'll show off some Spectre gameplay to explain how vehicles interact with FPSs and how we could use them for the Neptunia series game industry armies. Because we know that all of the goddesses have their own armies that they can deploy on command. The fact that they never do this in the game is baffling. Yes, I am aware that the goddess characters are very powerful, but at the same time, if they have armies that are large enough to actually wage war, which they seemingly can, it seems very beneficial for them to do so. I understand them not sending troops to fight R4, but if they're just gonna fight some guys like Ganache and Sanj, two characters that have very prominent story roles, but not very prominent power roles, it seems fitting that they actually send troops with them. We can get some camaraderie and learn about the cultures of the game industry. The armies of game industry will function similar to the Marines and Elites in Halo, and as stated, it would allow for more character to be seen in the series. Regarding IF, because IF can be seen commanding these armies, she could function similar to Sergeant Johnson, a character that commands the armies of game industry alongside the characters you are playing as. IF would not be playable as she already has her own game, which is something I deliberately want to avoid, making characters who've had their own game already playable. In the case of IF, Super Dimension Neptune versus Sacred Heart Girls. If we really wanted to, we could make a free mode as an unlock after beating the hardest difficulty. What this will do is make all characters playable in all the missions, and as a bonus you'd get IF, a character with absurd aim assist and one-shot kills. However, to balance this out, we'll have her get killed with only one headshot or very few amounts of body shots due to the fact that she will not be having any shields, and unlike the other three characters, she is pure human. Regarding the other Shah girls, they would be busy in the story, they would probably be commanders, and if they're not commanders, then they're probably doing other things within the context of the events of the game, and as such they will not be playable. Keisha was selected here because A, Keisha actually knows how to use guns, and B, among the Shah girls, Uni knows Keisha the best, which is most likely why she went looking for her. Here I am attempting to show off some vehicle gameplay. Now obviously the Spectre is something unique to Halo, but I figured we could do something similar to this given the fact that Neptunia does have armies, and it would be really cool to have one of the goddess characters roll around with, say, 3 lean box soldiers in some vehicle while listening to badass music and shooting down everything in their path. I will point out that you will see some deaths in this footage given the fact that, number one, this game is really hard, the Halo 2, but also because I'm not the world's greatest player, I'm just using this mostly as a way to demonstrate, whereas I could be using footage of me on easy mode, but something tells me that it won't look as good. And as you can see, it would be very chaotic as there'd be so much happening on the screen at any given time that you would have to be questioning what to focus on and what not to focus on. In addition, in a few seconds, I'm going to be showing off some gameplay regarding hijacking a tank. That's right, since tanks do exist in Neptunia, it would be very possible to show off the tanks being hijacked by goddess characters. Given the fact that the goddess characters are a lot stronger than some give them credit for, it would be very interesting to actually see, for example, Uni hijacking a tank using a sniper rifle. But also, careless driving will lead to your death. A bit later here, we were back to where we were, given the fact that we just died. I could show off a scene here where we actually decide to fight the Wraith itself, because vehicular combat would be really nice to have in a video game, and 2 different types of vehicles would make it even cooler. But that's not all. Sometimes, your vehicle breaks but you survive, so what do? You gotta get another vehicle. And how are we gonna do that? We're gonna rob this tank completely. Wow. And as you can see, even your allies can work to rob the vehicles. And by just defeating the enemies like this, you're able to just hijack it. Something like this is what I want to see, because the Neptunia cast is a lot stronger in the lore than the games make him out to be. I think that the Neptunia cast could probably get away with doing something like this. What do you think? So now let's get to the real meat of this video, the story. I am not an artist, so I did not go out of my way to develop various slides, but what I did do is write a plot skeleton, and I will read it word for word as stated here. Story. Avenir creates partnerships with Noir, declaring that they would strike up arms in the event of another R4, or external threat because they can no longer be too careful post Sisters vs. Sisters. Avenir creates anti-share crystals to neutralize, not kill, CPU after being informed by Grey Sister that in one timeline, ROM was taken over by R4. Avenir masterminds Ganache and Sanj realize that they can take over by creating additional anti-share crystals, but need to have CPU to test on, thereby kidnapping the CPU. Uni manages to escape because she can fight with guns, thus somewhat equalizing the combat should shares be neutralized. She is being chased by a battle goddess LT-UN. After escaping, Uni finds Keisha and convinces her to help by explaining that Avenir has Noir and the other goddesses, except Vert because she was informed by IF, who calls Uni telling her to go get her. Also, looking to improve the defenses of Leanbox soldiers, Vert commissioned Hakozaki Chika to create shielded armor after having seen it in a game involving a green spaceman. We know that Mjolnir armor equivalent is possible to achieve in game industry because in the Super Dimension, Neptunia encountered a Spartan. Vert would make it cover less because she knows that her citizens have a type. Uni and Keisha arrive and hand Vert Noir's musket, and Vert has her pistol already equipped. This pistol will be explained as something that seemed familiar, but not yet possessed by Vert at the time of the story. Vert will have access to Keisha and Uni as squad members. Hakozaki Chika would function as a type of Cortana, i.e. has all the answers and tells Vert what to do and where to go. The three would escape to Halo Forest. Vert sends Keisha to Last Station Basilicom to find Jingu GK, who's in a safe room. She'll function similar to Miranda Keys. Keisha sent because she was Noir's former stalker and as such knows how to break into Last Station's Basilicom far better than Uni can. Uni does go with Keisha. Vert goes through Halo Force alone to find CPU chips, 3 of them, basic monster enemies, so that each of them can gain HCD. Keisha and Uni find Jingu GK and set up in the safe room of the Basilicom. Last Station's army is commanded from the safe room by Uni to storm the Basilicom and take out all Avenir tech in the building. Kay states that there is a rumor that Ganache and Sanj are hiding out in Hyrule Plateau. Vert hands over the CPU chips to Kay and the two install them in the armor. This will activate HCD for Uni with 1 chip and activate both HCD and next for Vert 2 chips. Keisha will always have access to her gold 3rd form, which is why there is no 4th chip. Vert goes to Hyrule Plateau. She finds out where the battle goddesses are: LTUN, RBVR, and LTNR. Uni goes to Games Vision because Kay tells her that's where battle goddess LTUN is patrolling. Vert goes to Sakura Tree Road to fight RBVR. It's explained that RBVR found Neptune and Nepgear, and that's why the two are absent for this story. RBVR is rummaging through the Basilicom looking for information, but Histoire wiped Neptunian hardware in the Basilicom, backing everything up in her book. This is possible due to the cartridge update from V2. Keisha goes to Atari Marsh. It turns out that LNNR was the one who took Blonde, Rom, and Ram away. IF sends coordinates for Ganache and Sanj to Chika under Kay's orders. Uni and Keisha go to Land Castle Secret Hall and find Ganache. This will have a unique boss fight that would be a boss fight with Battle Goddess PNCS, CS for Kalis, a character from Mark II, but never had a Battle Goddess form, so this would be a way to sort of state that this character exists without using her again. Uni will defeat PNCS, while Keisha will kill Ganache. Vert goes alone to Icicle Pathway, and she finds IF there with Louis soldiers. They do this to rescue Mina. Mina sends Vert and IF to Severed Dimension to battle Sanj. In the Severed Dimension, Sanj escapes from Vert and IF to Hellfire Grotto. Kay knows this because she's using the assets of the guild to locate a powerful weapon, the Killasheen Mark III. Keisha is sent to Hellfire Grotto to find Sanj with IF. Keisha defeats the Killasheen Mark III and IF kills Sanj. Kay learns about the deaths of Sanj and Ganache, so she sends Uni, Keisha, and Vert to R4's factory, the place that Avenir used in secret to create the anti-share crystals. Uni, Keisha, and Vert work together to take out each individual battle goddess and rescue each CPU, yet they realize that the other girls can't fight so long as they are under the effects of the anti-share crystal that Avenir implanted in them. Vert and Uni take the goddesses to safety, while Keisha stays behind to take care of the machine that produces the lethal version of the anti-share crystals. The reason Keisha stays behind is because she is unaffected. Uni takes the other CPU and candidates to Leanbox's Basilicom to hide out and have Chica remove their implanted anti-shear crystals. Neptunia gets a message from Compa saying that Virtua Force is being burned down by some giant machine reminiscent of the Kill Machine from back in Mark II, but more dangerous. Vert declares that she'll go alone and that Keisha would be coming to the Basilicom with Compa to treat the CPU and close the opening where the anti-shear crystals were removed. Vert finds the Kill Machine Mark IV at Virtua Force, but due to it having a more potent lethal anti-shear crystal, she is unable to transform, but due to her armor, she's still alive and can move around. Vert defeats the Kill Machine Mark IV and declares Avenir a terrorist organization throughout game industry. Anyone found to have worked there will be imprisoned on site. At first, the CPU worried that it would be a controversial declaration, but given Avenir instituted patrols and controlled game industry for some time within the story, the people completely support it. This will be an ending. If you guys want to write different endings, go for it. This is just the hypothetical true ending. Neptune and Blonde allowed Vert to take their sisters on a picnic, and Blonde mentions that if Vert tried anything inappropriate, she'd kill her herself. Neptune gives no warning, just saying take care of Nepgear, but I figured it would be nice to have her make a reference to Victory, where Nepgear at one point believed that Vert was her big sister. Noir would blame herself and would ask Uni to be left alone and to go with Vert for the day. Keisha would comfort Noir and finally get a date as friends, as expressed by Noir. Truthfully, I want Keisha to win at least once. Give her a date with Noir. Why not? It ends with Vert having a picnic with the candidates and they all agree to go to a hot spring with Vert as long as they agree not to tell their big sisters. Nepgear objects, but Uni agrees to let Vert do it one time. And that's the end of the story. Thank you for watching. I hope you liked this idea. If you have any more ideas, please let me know. And if you don't think it would be an FPS, what do you think Vert's own game would consist of? Have a nice day.